Hey, what's up? I'm Joel Madden, and this is Artist Friendly. On this episode, I'll be talking to New York Times bestselling author, poet, co-host of the Goop podcast, and my very good friend, Cleo Wade. Her new book, Remember Love, is out now. We'll be talking about that and a whole lot more. Let's go.
I don't want no bad times. I don't want to have bad.
Thanks for coming.
First of all, I was starstruck coming in this office.
Why?
Seeing all of the Good Charlotte stuff and then seeing I haven't been, I think in a post-COVID world, I just don't go into the energy of other environments as much that are have nothing to do with what I do at all anymore. And so for me, I was like, oh my God, I haven't been to a studio or where there's just musicians and this and that. And it's just such a kind of creative hub here. You really live it when you're here. And I think that's really cool.
I think we forget all the time how lucky we are to just be in this environment full of creative people and to be a part of so many other people's different creative success and journey. And also as an older guy, you always look at success as different than maybe the younger people will. So they may even not feel like they're successful yet, but they are successful. Just knowing what you know and how hard it is to make it, you get to watch people on their journey and trying every day.
Yeah.
And failing and winning. And so for me, it's every little win matters because it's almost like with kids, they don't know how dangerous life is and they do wild shit. And you're like, God damn, you don't even realize how you're walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
That's kind of I feel like artists don't realize how hard it is to make it. And when they do have these little wins, you're like, wow.
Yeah. And I think if enthusiasm is something you could bottle, it would be the most valuable thing for any creative space. And so it's actually the enthusiasm that comes with youth is really the most kind of unfuckwithable energy because it really has the ability to shift an entire room. And there's so many people who as performers, I feel like it's their, enthusiasm to me is kind of, it's like an exclamation point on gratitude. And so to be in witness of that, I think you always notice that when you're, as someone who's not the person who's ever on a stage, I'm the viewer, when you're the witnesser, the thing I think that really kind of inspires you or fills you up or kind of gives you the enthusiasm too is that high key enthusiasm, which is really just gratitude. And I think that's what's really cool. And there's just really specific forms of that when you're young. And then it shifts and changes so much as you get older because you have different types of things you're grateful for.
Well put. You must be a writer.
Poet in the house.
I say that all the time here. Then energy and then what you could say is naive, kind of the naivete or whatever of a young person, a young artist with that optimism and enthusiasm. I'll take that all day over a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
I think you got to have some talent, right? So there are definitely cases of people that are enthusiastic that could still make it too, by the way, even if they lack kind of some of the talent, but some talent I think is necessary. Hard work is super necessary, but that powers the hard work, the enthusiasm, the optimism, the I'm going to make it attitude.
Well, and there's something in that where someone's taking a responsibility for their mood, and that's really important in a workspace. So when I was a kid, I remember watching, and it truly impacted me in such a way. I watched Say Anything, and there's a scene where John Cusack is talking to Joan Cusack, and I don't know if you remember this movie well, but he has an overwhelmed sister who I think is a single mother, and she's really just And at one point in the movie, he goes, "Hey, can you just get in a good mood? How hard is it to decide to be in a good mood and then just be in that mood? Just make the decision, get in a good mood." And that actually, even though I was so young when I watched that, that's been a part of my personal work ethic my entire life, which is
Every
that
day.
If I'm going to work, because I do think that it's my mood is my responsibility. Like the energy I bring to the room is something I have to take responsibility for. So like, I don't care if like right before I walked in here, I'm on the phone being like, my fucking nanny canceled at 3 a.m. last night. And like, I'm trying to figure it. I got like 2 people trying to watch my kids. But the second I walk in here, that's no one else's problem.
Right.
You know, you have to take responsibility. And like, there's whether you need the kind of ritual in yourself to be like, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths and then I'm going to go in there and like be the person I tell the world I am when I go to work. And I think that's important.
It's definitely like a persona that we have to like, we all have a persona.
Yeah.
That's a real part of us. Like there is the best version of me. Hopefully like I bring that when I do this, I bring the best version of me, the optimistic version. But there's definitely a version of me that's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or like scared, anxious, whatever.
Yeah, the human being.
Yes.
And as a human being, when we decide that we create spaces and groups of people with whom we, you know, either care for, you know, are responsible to because of whether it's financial agreements or relational agreements, we have to take responsibility for who we are when we enter community. So like we can, should, and always have the right to be and feel however we need to feel, wherever we are when we are to ourselves.
Right.
But I think if we want community to work, if we want workspaces to be high functioning in ways that actually feel good, you just can't be a dick. Like you have to say like, and I think that is actually a lot of the energy we feel now in workspaces where like, we're really kind of re-examining what a boss looks like and what this looks like and why this whole wave of people who are the heads of company are out and these new waves are in. It's actually, I think, people who are like, you know what, you can't, like the whole room shouldn't be determined by your mood or your whim because you're not being responsible to the group, and that's important.
Like the old days of like the Darth Vader boss coming in are like kind of over most of it in a lot of places. Because also I think like there's like the intersection of like social media and real life and work life, they all blend together now. Yeah. So people like are exposed those types of behaviors. 20 years ago, it was totally accepted if there was like a Darth Vader boss who walks in and is like, just like, shh.
Yeah. Well, now our water cooler talk is public.
Right.
So, you know, I was just saying this about someone the other day who like, someone did something and they kind of like they did something that I think the public was uncomfortable with. And then they kind of did something else that kind of like kept their conversation going. And I was like, you know, people are so afraid of getting like what they think is canceled, which is really actually just the public being, you know, the public disliking something they did. And they are uncomfortable being uncomfortable in that. Because most people who have public lives have a really kind of tense relationship with being disliked, you know? And so the thing is that a lot of the times this like idea of being canceled is not happening. You're just uncomfortable because people did not like the decision you made. And what you have to spiritually do is let go of trying to make everybody okay with what you do and live in your own integrity, regardless of what this public water cooler conversation is.
That is probably advice that like so many people should hear, because I see it all the time. And we're in entertainment, so we have tons of friends who everybody. It's weird in entertainment because for 20 years or so, you're in this space and you get to watch so many people and how they handle all the aspects of like the balance of like, this is a entertainment brand to the world, even though it's a human. And then there's a real human who's living a real life, and those things cross sometimes. Some people have really good ways of, I think, containing certain things or like balancing certain things. But like the world we live in now is it's all meshed up.
But I feel like someone like you has a really great kind of bandwidth for people being uncomfortable with what they do, because you kind of came up and out at a time where people were like, what was that sticker they used to slap on the CDs? That was like
a parental advisory.
Yeah, like when you came up, like that was not something that always existed. So, you know, that came out during your era. Yeah. And so when you lived in the time of parental advisory, like you knew you were pissing people off, And by the way, like to find your kind of tribe and like your kind of, which is different than a fan base, you knew that you had to like just know you spoke to them and not like trying to make everybody happy. But it's also was easier because you couldn't hear everybody. Yes, you could hear the like one loud mom at Walmart who was like mad, right? But like you just didn't have to hear the whole conversation. And so more often than not, you were in person with your real kind of like tribe of people who love what you do, and what you say really speaks to them. And so I think, and you always knew you pissed those people off, so it didn't matter. But I think with now, I feel like we really have this discomfort of like having to hear that people are mad.
Yeah, we do. We have to hear it. It's in our face.
Yeah. And
they can get to us.
Yeah. And so I think that, and constantly, right? All day, like your entire algorithm could be filled with like, I don't like this about this person, and I think that that's I think that's like the real struggle for people. And I think that's where they kind of get the nuance of like canceled wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I guess I feel lucky that I was somewhere in this like weird space of like having the mainstream success in a way that you could experience what that maybe that pop sense of success would feel like. But then also coming from kind of a grassroots kind of subculture-y kind of place. I think I don't know. I think we got lucky. I think, and then also the time, but certainly like it was always a conversation if what we were doing was good or bad or this or that. And so like and we also, I think, came up with lots of different people that were like misfits and outcasts in their own way. And so I think we always chalked it up to feeling like we were just outcasts or misfits.
Well, yeah. And there's always like the rebels that rise in popularity, right? Like whether you're James Dean or whether you're, whomever. But because if your popularity comes via rebellion, you just don't overthink what the people who become popular because they're so palatable have to deal with. So I think a lot of the time what we struggle with in this like where people live in fear of what to say or what not to say, it's because actually they're popular because they've been palatable. They were never popular because they like rebelled against this idea or had something to say that was like fuck the system or turn it upside down or something, in the vein of anarchy or this system isn't working or like these people are disenfranchised. So I think, whether it's you guys, whether it's hip hop, it was always saying like, it was all spaces of like, where rebellion rose to the top. Yeah.
You're a little bit of a rebel.
I feel more of a random than a rebel, but
no,
okay.
You're not a random. You're it's I was so excited to talk to you because I don't know, you're like we've become friends over the last like, I don't know, probably decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely a rebel. To me, you're like my friend that's like really in touch with like what's going on in the world in a way that like and I think it might be like your intellectual side. There's definitely like a lot of intellect behind all the things you do. Did you go to college?
No.
That's interesting. I thought maybe you went to college like Ivy League or something. I always
find
you to be
smart.
Yeah, I think you're really smart. Your brother went to college.
Yeah, my brother is currently in Indiana getting his master's.
He's a really cool guy.
Oh, he's so great. He's the
cool.
Best.
I love whenever we get to hang out.
I know. He's so soulful.
But both you guys have like a similar vibe. I always wonder like, what were they like growing up? But you are this like New York Times bestselling poet, writer, artist. But you're also like, I don't even know how to categorize it. Because if I use the word woke, it would be the wrong. But like you are really in touch with like what's going on in the world, what people are going through. You care about all that stuff enough, but you don't inundate. I don't find. So sometimes I definitely, we have friends in like politics or in like social causes. it's great. I mean, the world needs all of it, I think. But I sit in the middle usually, and I listen to everyone, and I kind of hear everyone arguing, and I feel like some people have taken that on in a way where it occupies their every thought, everything they say is kind of a mission to.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know, for me, it's like everybody has their mission in life and their passion.
Yeah.
But then you're one of those people that I find to be really up to speed and educated in a way that's real. But you're also like a real person. You can sit down and have a conversation, and we could not agree also and like talk about it. And like, it doesn't feel like uncomfortable.